This meeting of the Rolling Meadows City Council is hereby called to order. Would everyone please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The clerk will please call the roll.
Cannon?
Here.
Prana?
Here.
Majikis? Here. Judd?
Here.
Baner?
Here.
Diastis?
Present.
Veenbos?
Present.
7 present and none absent. There is a quorum present this evening. Therefore, members of the audience are reminded that these proceedings are being videotaped for current and future broadcast over the city's cable television channel. The first item on the agenda this evening is a motion to approve 2 different sets of minutes from the October 20th Committee of the Whole meeting and the October 27th Council meeting. Therefore, the chair asks unanimous consent to consider both sets of minutes in one motion. Is there any objection to doing so? Hearing none, it is so ordered that such a motion would be in order. Is there a motion to approve both sets of minutes?
So moved.
Mr. Banger has made the motion and it has been seconded. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections to either set of minutes? Seeing none, the question is, shall both sets of minutes be approved? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. The ayes have it, and both sets of minutes are approved. Next up is the mayor's report. I have 3 items this evening, sort of kind of in order of importance, I suppose. A couple of weeks ago, as part of my mayor's report, I talked about a particularly boneheaded idea that was coming from part of the state government about how municipalities should be biding their time money-wise, waiting for money that is local money that is simply held by the state. And as of today, perhaps maybe our voices were heard, or perhaps maybe people are just as reasonable as we hope they will be. And the Illinois House did pass a bill that will release certain funds to municipalities, among others. We expect it to go through the Senate as well, and it passed without any strings attached, which was a bit of a surprise. And so if we're unpleasantly surprised by some of the ideas that come out of Springfield, when we're pleasantly surprised, I think honor dictates that we point out that the state of Illinois is in the process of doing right by municipalities. It's taken a little while, but they're doing it. And so I think that's good news for all the municipalities around the state. Next up, one of the gentlemen in the audience this evening is Mr. Ross Vlieger. He is the fellow who is slated to be appointed to the Vehicle Replacement Committee as kind of the first resident that we have as part of that committee, if the council sees fit later on. We did have a chance to introduce him to the members of the council. So, Ross, if you wouldn't mind just standing for a second. Ross works for Arlington Heights in Public Works, but has also worked for a couple different semi-truck dealerships. And so I think that private and public experience will serve us well. So we really appreciate your taking the time to step up for this committee. Thank you, sir. And then finally, the question, so what's with the peacock routine tonight? Well, my siblings and I are all 240 years old to this very day. One of the things we love to point out about the Marine Corps is November 10th, 1775 in the city of Philadelphia, in a bar. The United States Marine Corps got founded in a place called Tun Tavern. And so for those who know more about the Marine Corps, the birthday is a very big deal for us. There are balls going on literally across the globe tonight, and everybody kind of pulls out the stops. So as far as I know, we've never had this come about during my terms of service. And so since it's a nice round year ending in a 0 of 240, we call this waving the flag. And I do so proudly on behalf of my brothers who are on active duty and serving our nation today. That is the mayor's report this evening. Are there ward reports? Mr. Prana of the 2nd Ward.
Well, mine will be short. Mine goes to the Rolling Meadows Fire Department because they paid a visit to our house this weekend, and they were there very quickly, and they did a great job. So kudos to those guys again. Thank you.
Further ward reports this evening? Seeing none, there are no signatories on the sign-in sheet this evening, so the council will proceed straight to its orders of business. The first section, as always, is a number of ordinances that are in for second reading. There are 7 of these. The first is item A. This ordinance, if adopted, would approve a 1-cent increase to the home rule motor fuel tax. Is there a motion to adopt this ordinance?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Diastis has made the motion, and it has been seconded. Is there any discussion on the ordinance? Seeing none, the question is, shall the ordinance be adopted? The clerk will please call the roll.
Prina?
Yes.
Majikis?
Yes.
Judd?
Yes.
Biancher?
Yes.
Diastis?
Yes.
Veenbos?
Yes.
Cannon?
Yes.
With 7 in favor and none opposed, this ordinance is hereby declared passed. The next item is item B. This ordinance, if adopted, would adopt certain procedures for the use of drones within the city limits. Is there a motion for its adoption?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Diastis has made the motion, and it has been seconded. Is there any discussion of the ordinance? Seeing none, the question is, shall the ordinance be adopted? The clerk please call the roll.
Majikis?
Yes.
Judd?
Yes.
Biancher?
Yes.
Diastis?
Yes.
Veenbos?
Yes.
Cannon?
Yes.
Prina?
Yes.
With 7 in favor and none opposed, this ordinance is hereby declared passed. The remainders of the ordinance are brought forward as a package. All 5 of these are the results that have made it this far from a quite lengthy process that went on between the council through committee of the whole meetings and also the employee advisory committee that was recently revived for this process. So the first of these second readings is item C. This ordinance, if adopted, would amend the personnel rules and regulations in section 14.2 regarding vacation earnings. Is there a motion to approve the ordinance?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Diastis has made the motion, and it has been seconded. Is there any discussion of the ordinance? Seeing none, the question is, shall the ordinance be adopted? The clerk will please call the roll.
Judd?
Yes.
Biancher?
Yes.
Diastis?
Yes.
Veenbos?
Yes.
Cannon?
Yes.
Prina?
No.
Majikis?
No.
With 5 in favor and 2 opposed, this ordinance is adopted. The next item is item D, also amending personnel rules and regulations, this time in section 14.8 regarding vacation accrual limits and a method to transition to the new limits. Is there a motion to adopt this ordinance?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Diastis has made the motion. And it has been seconded. Is there any discussion of this ordinance? Mr. Prana.
I think I've already made my point several times. One of the things that was brought up is that as we're passing these ordinances, we were looking at some people want to do this in 3 years, and I brought up the fact is how will we pay for these accruals, and I don't think we ever got an answer out of that. So that's just my comment on it.
Further discussion of the ordinance. Mr. Diastis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I kind of think Mr. Prina is right, but I have another question, is that we initially talked about, or the initial proposal was to pay it out over 3, and then I said, well, let's pay it out over 5, but the other question is, do we have to pay it out? Can we freeze everybody where they're at and let them take whatever they have earned now at some point in time in the future? But my caveat on that would be, it would be at whatever the rate of pay is for today. So if somebody had 2 or 3 extra weeks, they couldn't carry it for 20 years and get paid 2 or 3 extra weeks at 20 years extra pay, whatever it was at that point in time.
I do not know the answer to that question. Mr. Crumstock, is that something that's a possibility within standing HR regulations?
Typically not, but again, we could look at that if you would like to, but typically it's at the rate that it's being paid out at, so.
Meaning within a particular calendar year? Mr. Diastis, is that a sufficient answer to your question, that it's not typically done that way?
Well, I guess, the reason that I bring it up was because members of the council were concerned, some members of the council were concerned about paying it out in such a short term. Some felt better about extending it over 5 years, but I guess I would, at this point, I would make I don't know if a motion to postpone is correct, But but I'd like to get a little bit more information on whether we could do the atypical thing and let employees carry it, but at today's rate of pay, or if we were going to pay it off in 5 years, what kind of money are we talking about? 'Cause I'd like to know that might impact me and say, maybe 5 is not, maybe we can't let them keep it, and maybe 5 is just too much and we have to go to 7 or 10 or something to that effect. So I don't know if motion to postpone is correct.
If that is your objective, then a motion to postpone would be correct. It can only be properly postponed to the next council meeting, which would be on the 24th. If you would like to make such a motion and leave it to the discretion of the council, you're certainly entitled to do so.
Then I would make a motion to postpone so we can find out, A, if the atypical could become typical in this instance, or B, what it's going to cost the city to pay out this money over the course of 5 years.
Is there a second to this motion?
So moved, Mayor.
It has been seconded. Mr. Diastis, would you mind if we consider those opening comments on the motion?
Sure.
Fair enough. Then is there further discussion of the motion to postpone this item until the next council meeting for the purpose of gaining more information on those two questions that Mr. Diastis has asked? Mr. Prano,
I will support this, so I think it's a great idea.
any further discussion? Mr. Banger?
Thank you. I won't support this just because what we're doing is atypical to begin with, so I guess a double atypical would just make it go into the twilight zone. We went from 3 years to 5 years.
Correct.
To stretch out the costs.
Correct.
To make it easier to swallow, so I would say let's just stick with that course of action and get it started as soon as possible. Thanks.
Further discussion of the motion to postpone? Mr. Diastis?
So I understand what Mr. Bender said, but there's also the question of what's it going to cost the city over the course of 5 years, and we never got that answer. So I would still say motion to postpone would be okay to do so we can get that information.
And I think as a clarification, I do believe the council did receive an answer from the staff about the 3-year time period. The question, how is that affected by the 5-year time period, is legitimate. It may turn out to be an easier answer than we think, but it's certainly a possibility. Further discussion of the motion to postpone. Mr. Veenbos.
I support the taking a look at the 5 years and see what the cost is too.
Further discussion of the motion to postpone? Then the chair considers it advisable to take a roll call vote. The question is, shall the second reading of this ordinance be postponed to the next council meeting? The clerk will please call the roll.
Baner.
No.
Diastis.
Yes.
Veenbos.
Yes.
Cannon.
No.
Prana.
Yes.
Majikis.
Yes.
Judd.
No.
With 4 in favor and 3 opposed, this ordinance is postponed until the next council meeting. And staff is directed to prepare some brief answers to Mr. Diastis' questions on the funding, please. The next item then would be item E. This ordinance, if adopted, would also amend the personnel rules and regulations, now in section 15.2, regarding the creation of a sick leave bank. Is there a motion to adopt this ordinance?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Diastis has made the motion. It has been seconded. Is there any discussion of the ordinance? Seeing none, the question is, shall the ordinance be adopted? The clerk will please call the roll.
Diastis.
Yes.
Veenbos.
Yes.
Cannon.
Yes.
Prana.
Yes.
Majikis.
Yes.
Judd.
Yes.
Baner.
Yes.
With 7 in favor and none opposed, this ordinance is hereby declared passed. Next is item F. This ordinance, if adopted, would also amend the personnel rules and regulations, now in section 18.2, regarding the establishment of a merit pay plan to be administered by the manager's office. Is there a motion for adoption? Mr. Banger has made the motion, and it has been seconded. Is there any discussion? Mr. Diastis.
A plan will be developed. Do we know, I don't even know if this is a fair question to ask, whether, if this is approved, does this mean that all affected employees will automatically get a merit pay increase?
It does not. It means that a pool would be established.
Yep.
Those who meet the criteria that are set by the manager would be eligible, but it does not specify that somehow or another, all employees would simply be able to take advantage.
And this is just employees who are not covered under a collective bargaining agreement.
That is also correct.
Okay, thank you.
Further discussion of the ordinance? Seeing none, the question is, shall the ordinance be adopted? The clerk will please call the roll.
Veenbos.
Yes.
Cannon.
Yes.
Prina.
Yes.
Majikis.
Yes.
Judd.
No.
Banjer.
Yes.
Diestis.
Yes.
With 6 in favor and 1 opposed, this ordinance is hereby declared passed. The final item in this section would also amend personnel rules and regulations, now in sections 15.2 and 14.2, regarding sick leave accrual limits and vacation accrual administration. Is there a motion to approve this ordinance? Mr. Veenbos has made the motion, and it has been seconded. Is there any discussion? Mr.
Mayor.
Prana?
We had a discussion at the last meeting, and I'd like to make an amendment to this to make it 240 hours, because as the write-up comes from the EOC, that would be at least minimum to make us competitive in the surrounding areas. So I would like to propose a motion, instead of 180 hours, it would be 240 hours.
A motion has been made to strike the number 180 and insert the number 240 where it appears. Is there a second to the amendment?
So moved, Mayor.
The amendment has been seconded. Mr. Prana, shall we consider those opening comments, or would you wish the floor?
That's my opening comments.
Is there further discussion of the amendment? Mr. Cannon?
Mr. Mayor, point of order. I thought we voted on this last, on the first reading, so we
That
still
is
can,
correct.
you still can do it on the second time?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Meaning it can't be amended to the same effect twice in the same night, but part of the purpose of 2 readings is to reset the clock. So
Fair enough.
it is
Thank
a
you.
proper motion for this
Thank you.
evening. Is there further discussion? Mr. Banjer?
Thank you. It sounds like the right thing to do. I think if I remember right, the last council meeting, this failed, and then Alderman Majikis went for the middle number.
I believe 220 was the
Right.
secondary amendment that was offered. Correct.
So I support both. I'll be voting that way, but I'm having that sense of deja vu now.
Well,
Thank you.
Correct. And again, these things cannot be done multiple times in the same debate, but folks have a shot to go at it a second time on a second reading. That's part of what they're for. Further discussion of the amendment? The chair would simply state that the chair is also in favor of the amendment. Further discussion? Seeing none, the question is, shall the ordinance be amended to strike the number 180 and insert the number 240? The clerk will please call the roll.
Cannon.
No.
Prina.
Yes.
Majikis.
Yes.
Judd.
No.
Banjer.
Yes.
Diestis.
No.
Veenbos.
No.
With 3 in favor and 4 opposed, the ordinance is not amended and stands as is presented in the packet. Is there further discussion of the ordinance? Mr. Diestis?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to make my point, my position clear. I believe that the city offers everyone the opportunity to purchase short-term disability and long-term disability. And I believe that's how we should proceed. So, to members of the council, I will be voting no on this.
Now, the chair would ask the manager, is it correct to phrase it as the city provides an opportunity? Does the city, when employment is done, offer through HR, or are folks just supposed to get it on their own?
We have a vendor that we notify people who has short-term disability.
Okay, fair enough. Hang on, say that again.
We have a vendor who is an outside vendor, not part of our usual, who does provide that short-term before IMRF disability would kick in.
And so is that offered to employees as they come on board?
They are told and notified, and then during our benefit fair,
Okay.
that vendor is here to go over any of those things.
Then Mr. Diestis' characterization is correct.
Thank you.
Is there further discussion of the ordinance? Seeing none, the question is, shall the ordinance
Mr.
be
Mayor,
adopted?
just a question?
On a question.
A question? If there are 4 noes, What is the result?
The result is that the situation does not change a bit, and that the 80 hours that is currently part of the employee rules and regulations, as we call it, would stand as it was changed 5 years ago.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Further discussion of the ordinance. Mr. Prano.
I didn't agree with what they did with the 80 hours 5 years ago, and I don't agree with it now, but if 180 hours is the best I can do for the employees, I will be voting for the 180 hours.
The chair would state that I'm in agreement with Mr. Prano's statements, that if it's what we can get, we should probably take it. Further discussion of the ordinance. Then seeing none, the question is, shall the ordinance be adopted? The clerk will please call the roll.
Prina,
Yes.
Majikis, Yes. Judd,
No.
Baner,
Yes.
Diastis.
No.
Veenbos.
No.
Cannon.
Yes.
With 4 in favor and 3 opposed, this ordinance is hereby declared passed. That concludes all of the items that are in for second reading this evening. Under first reading, we have a consent agenda that contains 5 ordinances, items H through L. Would any alderman like any of those items removed from the consent agenda for ordinances? Mr. Judd.
I and K.
Items I and K are pulled. Would any alderman like any other items removed from the consent agenda for ordinances? Then seeing none, items H, J, and L remain on the consent agenda for ordinances. Therefore, the chair asks unanimous consent to consider all 3 of those ordinances in one single motion. Is there any objection? Hearing none, the chair declares it in order for a motion to approve those 3 ordinances on first reading. Mr. Banger has made the motion, and it has been seconded. The question is, shall ordinances H, J, and L be moved forward by the clerk for second reading? Item H would approve the tax levy for the library for 2016. Item J would approve an increase to various building permit fees. And item L would approve an application for a Class B liquor license for the Armanetti's Liquor Store located at 4001 Algonquin Road. Again, the question is, shall all 3 ordinances be moved forward for second reading? The clerk will please call the roll.
Majikis.
Yes.
Judd.
Yes.
Baner.
Yes.
Diastis.
Yes.
Veenbos.
Yes.
Cannon.
Yes.
Prina.
Yes.
7 in favor and none opposed. The clerk will please move all 3 of those ordinances forward for second reading. The council then returns to item I. This ordinance, if adopted, would approve the tax levy for the city portion, which stands currently at a 4.9% increase over the last levy. Mr. Judd, you asked that this item be pulled. Excuse me. Is there a motion to move this item forward for second reading? Mr. Banger has made the motion, and it has been seconded. Therefore, Mr. Judd, if you wish, you're entitled to first comment, sir.
I have none. Thank you.
Further discussion? Seeing none, the question is, shall this item be moved forward for second reading? The clerk will please call the roll.
Judd.
No.
Baner.
Yes.
Diastis.
Yes.
Veenbos.
Yes.
Cannon.
No.
Prina.
Yes.
Majikis.
Yes.
With 5 in favor and 2 opposed, this ordinance is moved forward for second reading. The council then returns to item K. This ordinance, if adopted, would approve an increase to the rental dwelling license fees. Is there a motion to is there a motion to move this item forward for second reading?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Diastis has made the motion, and it has been seconded. Mr. Judd, you asked this be pulled. Would you like first comment, sir?
I have none. Thank you.
Further discussion of item K. Mr. Diastis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As this is a first reading, could I ask staff if they could provide us like a small spreadsheet of what our neighboring communities are doing for charging for some of these things for the next meeting?
Meaning similar to the
Right.
table in J.
Already in there.
I'm sorry? Did I miss it?
171.
I missed it. My apologies.
Fair enough. Further discussion of the ordinance? Seeing none, the question is, shall the clerk move this item forward for second reading? Clerk will please call the roll.
Baner.
Yes.
Diastis.
Yes.
Veenbos.
Yes.
Cannon.
Yes.
Prina.
Yes.
Majikis.
Yes.
Judd.
No.
With 6 in favor and 1 opposed, the clerk will please move this item forward for second reading. The final ordinance on tonight's agenda is an item that is also in for first reading. It is item M. This ordinance, if adopted, would amend the personnel rules and regulations to abolish Tier 2 as a classification for employees. Is there a motion to adopt this ordinance? Mr. Prana has made the motion. And it has been seconded. Is there discussion of the ordinance? Mr. Prana?
I realized this was started 5 years ago before I was here. There was a different council. I believe Alderman Diastis and Alderman Judd voted for this 5 years ago. Since I've been on the council, I have heard from staff repeatedly that this is a challenge to manage, and also the fact that for personnel and retaining personnel, it has made it very difficult. And now that we don't have 2 tiers, but have 4 tiers, because we have the bargaining units, I feel it's time to move forward with this. I also need to comment that since I've been on the council, Alderman Judd, through his words and actions, has pushed the employees to a collective bargaining situation, which is going to cost the city more money, and through his words and actions is also going to cost the residents more money. And through Alderman Judd's words and actions, we're also going to cost the employees more money. So since we now have, instead of 2 bargaining units, through Alderman Judd's words and actions, we're now going to have 4. I put this forth and believe that we should try to go back to one tier, because presently staff has dealing with 4 tiers. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Further discussion of the ordinance? Mr. Cannon?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess I would like to ask a couple questions of our city manager, if that's possible.
Certainly.
Barry, it's my understanding that a little more than half of our employees now are considered Tier 2.
A little more than half? No.
Well, let's see, I guess that's changed because now with the bargaining units, but I mean, okay, can you give me a percentage of how many are Tier 1 and how many are Tier 2? Just ballpark, doesn't have to be exact.
Now you're asking me to go back to July, the last time that we printed stuff, so I don't want to even...
That's fine, don't worry, that's not important.
It was in one of the reports that we had.
Don't worry about it. Okay, so here's a couple questions I would ask. Any person that was hired by the city of Rolling Meadows under the Tier 2 structure, were they promised anything other than Tier 2 benefits and salaries when they came on board?
No, they have rules and regs, and what's in front of them is what's presented to them.
But were they promised any future increases because they were Tier 2 and they would be going to something different?
There's never a promise because, again, rules and regs have been tweaked, changed in benefit levels and benefits overall through negotiations and through any rules and regs have changed over time.
Has anybody ever asked you, either from the council or anywhere else, to have someone from Tier 1 go down to Tier 2?
No.
Okay, thank you. Another question I would ask is, when a person's hired under Tier 2 rules and regulations, how many days of vacation does a first-year person get when they're done with their first year?
It's 10 vacation days, isn't that correct?
Right. I just want to make sure because we just did it, so...
Okay, and then all of our employees, whether they're Tier 1 or Tier 2, get 13 paid holidays, correct?
You get 10 plus the 3 floaters.
So there's 13 altogether.
That is correct.
Okay. And then when you're Tier 2, how many 6 days do you qualify for?
It's 4 hours a month under Tier 2.
So you get 6 sick days a year.
Yes.
Okay. And then is there any other personal days on top of that, or is that the personal days you talked about with the 3 floaters?
Yeah, the 3 floaters are considered personal. If you want to consider it that, we consider them floaters.
Okay, so if my totals are correct then, a person who's a brand-new employee with us would have, 29 days available to them for not working and being paid?
At this point in time, yes, with the 10, 13, and 6 that we just talked about.
Okay, I'm going clarification, so I'm on the same thing. So total they have 29 days off the first year they're on board with our city as a Tier 2 employee. Right?
I think the phrase days off is
Well,
inaccurate
days paid.
because it includes sick days
Okay,
and such.
okay.
But yes, somebody could be in a situation to receive those 29, correct.
Okay. So the point I'm trying to make is that I think as a city, we made a decision 5 years ago that we were going to try to reduce a little bit of our cost and still take care of our employees. I think most people that work in the private sector that found out that you had available 29 days of paid off, vacation, sick, personal in the first year of employment would be pretty impressed with the benefit package. Contrary to what other people have said, sometimes directed my way, is I'm very proud of the employees we have, whether they're Tier 1 or Tier 2. I have never heard anybody that I've heard say that we want people to quit. I think I have heard this phrase saying if they're not happy here, they should leave. But I would think that would go no matter where you work. I don't think that's unique to us. I want a happy and healthy group that's here, but I think the benefit package we offer it to is more than reasonable by most people's standards. I don't think we're punishing people. We never promised them more than what that. No one was forced to come to work here. I don't think 29 days of available pay is a reasonable thing. So the point I'm making is I think we're being pretty generous. I see absolutely no reason to change where we're going. Through the last survey that our mayor presented to us, our benefit and pay package were still about 8% higher than the mean in our area. So we're hardly punishing people. And I just don't think that we should even consider this, but that's where I'm coming from. But thank you for listening.
Mr. Crumstock.
Just because I've been asked questions too, please remember, anybody at home, when we talked about earned, please remember that's earned time. So again, person just doesn't start with 29 right off the bat. So just clarification.
Further discussion of the ordinance? Mr. Prana.
Just, Mr. Mayor, that when we brought up the sickage report, the Tier 2 employees were not even close to a lot of the surrounding areas. And if anyone has been reading the newspapers, the private sector, all 5 of the major auto companies, the last contracts that were negotiated, they were negotiated so that Tier 2 would disappear and there would just be one tier. So as I bring this up, it's something that, we tried Tier 2. I understand the reason for it 5 years ago. We have heard staff, we heard the Employee Advisory Committee tell us the challenges that it brings forward. So I believe that we should go to Tier 1 and just have one tier, because right now we do have 4 tiers, and it would make it a lot easier for staff. And I think that all the hours that we lose from training people and having them go elsewhere, this would help to stabilize that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Further discussion of the ordinance? Mr. Banger.
Thank you. I remember Alderman Prania had mentioned private sector unions during our last city council meeting, and I just wanted to make sure, just I guess from my perspective, I never confused the two, public sector, private sector, although several years ago you probably could, because the auto industry was bailed out by taxpayer money, and I think cash for clunkers, which was a staggering loss to taxpayers, also helped bail them out. So in some regards, you could almost say they wouldn't be here. There would have been tremendous losses in the industry if we hadn't, bailed them out. So, number one, private sector, I don't think the two are linked that clearly. And number two, I don't think I certainly don't pay too much attention to those particular unions anymore because they're here because of a massive infusion of public cash. Just something I wanted to mention. Thank you.
Further discussion of the ordinance? Then seeing none, the question is, shall this item be moved forward for second reading? The clerk will please call the roll.
Diestis,
No.
Veenbos,
No.
Cannon,
No.
Prina,
Yes.
Majikis,
Yes.
Judd,
No.
Biancher.
No.
With 2 in favor and 5 opposed, this ordinance fails on first reading. That brings the council to the warrant for the evening, next on the agenda. The document that releases all of the funds for the obligations that were incurred by the city from October 21st to November 3rd. The item in this evening is just under $2.7 million, and this unusually high amount is due to wire transfers for the water service for the city, and also an unusual number in the warrant register checks section. Is there a motion to adopt the warrant as prepared by the Finance Department? Mr. Banger has made the motion, and it has been seconded. Is there any discussion of the warrant? Seeing none, the question is, shall the warrant be approved? The clerk will please call the roll.
Diestis,
Yes.
Veenbos.
Yes.
Cannon.
Yes.
Prina,
Yes.
Majikis,
Yes.
Judd,
Yes.
Biancher.
Yes.
With 7 in favor and none opposed, the warrant is approved. That brings the council to the consent agenda for resolutions. That consent agenda contains items O through V. Is there any alderman who would wish any of these items to be removed from the consent agenda for resolutions? Mr. Judd.
O and P.
O and P, the first two. Further items to be removed? Then seeing none, the chair asks unanimous consent to consider the remaining 6 resolutions as one motion. Is there any objection? Hearing none, the chair therefore declares it in order for a single motion to approve all 6 resolutions. Mr. Veenbos has made the motion, and it has been seconded. Resolution Q would authorize the purchase of vehicle extrication equipment. Resolution R would award a contract for a road salt alternative and de-icing materials for the upcoming winter. Item S would award a contract for the 2015 Storm Sewer Rehabilitation Program. Item T would award the contract for parkway tree trimming for the remainder of this year. Item U would award a contract for site improvements on Outlot 5 of the Rolling Meadows Shopping Center. And item V would award a contract to HBK Water Meter Service Incorporated for the installation of SmartPoint water meter equipment. Again, the question is, shall all 6 of these resolutions be adopted? The clerk will please call the roll.
Veenbos.
Yes.
Cannon.
Yes.
Prina,
Yes.
Majikis.
Yes.
Judd.
Yes.
Biancher.
Yes.
Diestis.
Yes.
With 7 in favor and none opposed, all 6 of those resolutions are adopted. The council then returns to item O. This resolution, if adopted, would approve an intergovernmental agreement with the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District regarding their rain barrel program. Is there a motion to approve the resolution? Mr. Banger has made the motion, and it has been seconded. Mr. Judd, you asked that this item be pulled. You're entitled to first comments.
I have none, thank you.
Further discussion of the resolution? Mr. Banger.
Thank you. I think this would be a good time to mention that MWRD, which is imposing some new sprinkler regulations, which we approved just a few weeks ago in order to conserve water, has rolled this out. I jumped the gun by several weeks and emailed the fella without realizing that we hadn't approved this yet, who promptly rejected me and sent me back to our city, who explained the process to me. But I'm actually quite excited about this. These things are free. They've always been between $55 and $75 in the past, and you can get up to 4. So I understand what we're saying here, but I'm just thinking this is directly linked to our efforts to conserve water. And these things, if there are enough of them in the city, you'd be amazed at how much water you could save from going into the local waterways, which is the whole point. So I just wanted to point that out. These two, they're one on the heel of the other, just kind of directs the effectiveness back to the one. Thank you.
Correct. This is one of those approaches that gets economies of scale, and the more people who participate, the more benefit there is. Further discussion of the resolution? Seeing none, the question is, shall the resolution be adopted? The clerk will please call the roll.
Cannon?
Yes.
Prina?
Yes.
Majikis?
Yes.
Judd?
No.
Biancher?
Yes.
Diestis?
Yes.
Veenbos?
Yes.
With 6 in favor and 1 opposed, this resolution is adopted. The final resolution for this evening then is item P. This resolution, if adopted, would approve the purchase of a new fire ambulance. Is there a motion to adopt the resolution? Mr. Banger has made the motion, and it has been seconded. Mr. Judd, you asked that this item be pulled. Would you like first comments?
No, thank you.
Are there any further comments on this resolution? Mr. Cannon?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just real quickly, I think everybody's probably read over what we're doing here, but I think the chief and his committee came back with a really logical choice for us. They drove a couple different vehicles this time. Obviously, we own Ford software right now, so we're trying to standardize on Ford vehicles. And this one does have a better ride than the Internationals, as you may know. We've had some issues because we keep on buying equipment where the companies go out of business or parts of the business. So hopefully this will be a better thing. This was also off the state contract, so that's why we don't have multiple bids. Thank you.
Further discussion of the resolution? Mr. Diastis?
I just want to make sure, because I read it here, but the Vehicle Replacement Committee is in favor and thumbs up on this.
That
Yes?
is correct. The
Yes?
Vehicle
Yes.
Replacement Committee met this evening before this council meeting and approved the recommendation, so to speak.
And I guess to further that, the council has created various committees to investigate and research and use their knowledge to make a recommendation. And I think 99.9% of the time, they've taken a lot of the work. They've done a lot more than we all have done. They've become experts in this area, and I think the gentleman who's volunteering, he's not here right now, but he'll be a part of this as well. I thank them for all the hard work they do, and I'll be voting in favor of this with the recommendation of the Vehicle Replacement Committee.
Further discussion of the resolution? Seeing none, the question is, shall the resolution be adopted? The clerk will please call the roll.
Majikis? Oh, Prina? Sorry. Prina.
Yes.
Majikis?
Yes.
Judd?
Are you one?
Did Jen answer?
That was no. Yes.
Oh, Biancher?
Yes.
Diestis?
Yes.
Veenbos?
Yes.
Cannon?
Yes.
With 6 in favor and 1 opposed, this resolution is adopted. That concludes all of the resolutions that are in tonight's agenda. Under mayor's appointments, as mentioned during the mayor's report, we now officially make the appointments if the council so chooses. The chair would ask for a motion to approve the recommendation of Mr. Ross Vlieger to serve on the Vehicle
So
Replacement
moved,
Committee.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Prena of the Vehicle Replacement Committee has made the motion. Mr. Cannon, also of the Vehicle Replacement Committee, has seconded. Therefore, is there any further discussion of the appointment?
If I want to be a
Mr.
character
Prena,
witness,
certainly.
I've known him since he was 7 years old.
And we hope that means you approve.
I do.
I'm just teasing. I'm just teasing. Further discussion of the nomination? Then the question is, shall Mr. Vlieger's appointment to the Vehicle Replacement Committee be approved by the council? Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it, and Mr. Vlieger is hereby appointed to the Vehicle Replacement Committee. There are no proclamations this evening. Does the city clerk have a report?
No, Mr. Mayor.
And then under staff reports, we go to Mr. Crumstock with the community items of interest.
We actually have a long list. I'll try making it as brief as I can. Reminder, the leaves are falling down. Please do not put them in the street or the sewers. We do have the contractor out. We will have the city sweeper back out soon and needed some repairs. Reminder that Monday, November 2nd, did start our early refuse, so please have your refuse out at the curb no earlier than 3 p.m. the day prior to pickup. And obviously, tomorrow, which is Wednesday, November 11th, in recognition of Veterans Day, please remember and thank a veteran, and regular refuse routes will be observed, meaning that there is no delay in service for this holiday. The Rolling Meadows Rotary, BMO Harris, Bank, Rolling Meadows High School, and members of the community are collecting food for Bethel Lutheran Church. We do have flyers throughout the area. If you want to donate, please donate by Friday, November 13th at BMO Harris, where the location is. And again, If we can do it again, Friday, November 13th, dropping off for the food pantry, and there's a whole list of items that are actually here. We have a list here at City Hall too. And again, it goes to benefit Bethel Lutheran Food Pantry. Obviously, starting Thursday, the preview night, but Friday, Saturday, Sunday, the Friends of the Rolling Meadows Library. I'm making sure that I'm getting contact to that alderman. We do have another book sale coming up at the Rolling Meadows Library, and it is conducted again Friday, Saturday, Sunday are the main times. Friday, it's from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. Saturday, it's from 9 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. And for Sunday, it's 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. That is the last one for 2015. Obviously, for the week of November 23rd is the final week for yard waste collection. Yard waste collection ends Saturday, November 28th, which is actually the day right after the day after Thanksgiving. So just please remember that week, have everything out. And then regarding Thanksgiving week, the City Hall and Public Works will be closed on Thursday, November 26th and Friday, November 27th in observance of Thanksgiving holiday. Refuse collection is delayed that week. Thursday routes will be collected on Friday, Friday routes collected on Saturday. And then, obviously, as you walked into City Hall, and we do have boxes here at City Hall, and we also have at the library, Rolling Meadows is partnered with the United States Marine Corps Reserve to collect Toys for Tots. And again, the program goes all the way until Monday, December 7th. And again, those locations are City Hall or at the library. And then obviously coming up, the city will be conducting its annual tree lighting event on Thursday, December 3rd, starting at 6 p.m. Then we will have fireworks shortly after that, maybe about 6:20. And then at 6:30, starting at the fire station, we will have the 60th anniversary committee will be doing a dinner. So please join us on Thursday, December 3rd. And then the final item that we do want to acknowledge again, here at City Hall, we do have a box out. City Swank and Elgin Recycling are due the Holiday Light Extension Cord and Wire Recycling Program that actually goes until February 12th of 2016. With that, those are the items of interest.
Then next under city staff reports is listed the Employee Advisory Committee update. That update is in simply as a vehicle for the Employee Advisory Committee to have a vehicle for feedback, to continue their part of the conversation in the process. Therefore, the chair personally sent that item out early to the members of the council for their consideration. With the second readings having taken place, except for the one that has been postponed, obviously business has been conducted. Therefore, Mr. Vogt, any further thoughts on that Employee Advisory Committee update?
Oh, Mr. Mayor, at this time, other than, as you pointed out, item D will come back with information either via the Employee Advisory Committee or via the city manager's office.
Then I would invite the Employee Advisory Committee on the item that is still open to continue this process if they so wish, and something could be placed in as a staff report again so that it's part of the public record, and I would be happy to send it out early again for consideration by the council.
Thank you, and we will act accordingly in the next 10 days.
That concludes item 2. Item number 3 is the purchase order disclosures over $2,500. Ms. Gallagher?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, there are 4 purchase orders on the purchase orders over $2,500 for review. Nothing further to know.
Then the final item under other business and reports is the presentation of the agenda for next week. Mr. Crumstock.
We actually have 4 items for the main committee of the whole. The Islamic Society or the Northwest Suburbs will be the first item that is actually up, doing a presentation. ComEd will be doing their annual report and presentation at that point and mention some programs that might be beneficial for residents. We will be talking about the city engineer contract, and the final item is the 2016 city budget. And then after that, at this point in time, we will be having a closed session on union negotiations.
Then seeing no comments on the agenda for next week, are there matters not on the agenda this evening? Seeing no matters not on the agenda, then there is a motion that is necessary to go into closed session for 4 different purposes. However, they all fall under the same heading, under union negotiations, subsection C2 of the Illinois Open Meetings Act. Therefore, the chair asks unanimous consent to consider all 4 items in one motion. Is there any objection? Seeing none, the chair declares it is in order for one motion to go into closed session for 4 purposes. Is there such a motion? Mr. Banger has made the motion, and it has been seconded. It does require a formal vote. Is there any discussion of the motion to go into closed session? Seeing none, the question is, shall the council enter closed session to discuss 4 different union negotiation items? The clerk will please call the roll.
Majikis?
Yes.
Judd?
Yes.
Biancher?
Yes.
Diestis?
Yes.
Veenbos?
Yes.
Cannon?
Yes.
Prina?
Yes.
With 7 in favor and none opposed, the council will now enter closed session. Members of the audience and of the press are advised that we do not expect to take any action this evening upon returning to open session.